It's the Brad and John Show.
Brad and John Show for the last day of July, July 31st, 2025. This is the B block, which means we started right around 7:20, and we're at 7:25 right now, so we're right on schedule, right, John? Okay.
That's right. We run a very tight ship here, Brad. The trains always run on time.
That's right. Okay, John, you ready for one of your favorite jingles?
It's time for Brad's Top 3.
It's time for Brad's Top 3.
You did such a good job of that. Okay.
Thank you.
My number 3 this morning is Dan Gaynor, Gainor. You know who he is?
No idea. Does he do a gainer off the top of a building?
He does 3 of them. They call it the 3 Gainer. Anyway, he's a guy who has written an opinion piece on Fox News. And it's pretty interesting. It's called Liberal Media Tried to Destroy Trump. He crushed them instead. And it's actually a fascinating article because it starts out with one paragraph. David defeated Goliath, but it took President Donald Trump to crush the Goliath of liberal media. He goes through, and I didn't even realize this, he goes through the whole thing. Talks about in recent weeks, Trump has defunded the leftist public media at NPR and CBS. CBS announced that late night host Stephen Colbert is being let go. He goes through the whole thing. He goes talking about, and I didn't know about this, do you know about the situation with the buyouts at the Washington Post? Do you know about this story?
No, what happened?
Well, he says that all the liberal columnists of the Washington Post are being, and the Washington Post is owned by Jeff Bezos, and he's changed the idea of the Washington Post instead of, and matter of fact, there was a big controversy about this because he essentially changed the direction of the editorial board from their snarky stuff they did all the time to essentially doing uplifting editorials about free trade and business and stuff like that. Anyway, it talks about, he gives him the thing, and I don't even know who some of these people are. Let me go through the list here. He says he talks about who's list of media types: Jonathan Capehart, Jen Rubin, Ann Telnays, David Shipley, Ruth Marcus, Eugene Robinson. None of them was willing to work for the section that now supports, here it is, free markets and personal liberties. These are all longtime liberal columnists and people that work at the Washington Post that they specifically have targeted with nice buyout agreements. Essentially, hey, we'll pay extra money in your pension fund, and we'll pay you for a year, and we'll pay you for this, we'll pay you for that, if you'll just leave and walk out the door. And he also talks about the fact that how this is backfiring with the liberal governments, and specifically, and I forgot about this, I didn't forget about California, but I forgot about Hawaii. And he talks about, remember the incredibly nasty fire they had on one of the islands of Hawaii that unfortunately killed all those people and wiped out almost like that entire village, that town in Hawaii, remember that?
Yeah, I do remember that.
And then the fires in Los Angeles. And he's pointing out the fact that since these are Hawaii and California are liberal strongholds, is that nothing's getting rebuilt because they've thrown up all these. Well, your place, if you want to rebuild your new place, you can't rebuild it the way you built your old place because it doesn't meet this code, this code, this code, this code, this code, this code, this code. And essentially, what they've done is they've essentially stomped down, or tamped down. Tamped down. That's one of the political terms on trying to do this. And he talks about how this is backfiring among even the Democrats in California, and to the point where people are like tired of it, and to the point where what this has happened is it's happened in the media where people are going like, okay, we're sick of this biased media, and it's Donald Trump that's crushing it. Interesting, like he talks about that, and he goes through this interesting thing. You being a political junkie, this would be a great article for you to read. It talks about how George Bush, the first George Bush president, tried to be friendly with the press, and they ended up just eviscerating him. He talked about how the second George Bush tried to be kind and gentle with the press. And once again, they cut him off at the kneecaps. So what does Trump do? He goes after them. He's unabashedly calling them out, calling them biased, calling them fake, and it's working. And I find this fascinating because it goes back to the genesis of the Rush Limbaugh program. Me being a radio nerd, the interesting part of this is that nobody really realized how biased the press was until Rush Limbaugh came along. John, would you agree with that or not?
Absolutely. And he did a fantastic job documenting specific instances of how biased they were.
Anyway, it's a great op-ed. If you're a Dem, you're going to hate this. My Dem friends who listen to the show, who send me nasty texts after the show. I told you I've lost 2 friends for this now. One just last week and one a couple of weeks ago.
Good. They weren't friends then, were they, Brad?
See, John, you bring up an interesting point. Okay, I don't know about you, but I have people. Matter of fact, I have dinner with 2 of my family members, one who I will not name because she will be upset with me that she actually had dinner with me, and the second is my youngest son. And I have so much fun with my youngest son because he sits there, and it's funny. As I walk up to the restaurant we're meeting, he's standing outside. I go, "Hey, Drew, I know you're going to tell me how much you love your job and how you enjoy going to work every day." And he looks at me and goes, "You know I hate my job. You know I hate going to work every day," because his idols are Bernie. His idols are Bernie because he keeps telling me, now he tells me Bernie's too old. He can't really change anything anymore. But his idol for years has been Bernie, because if Bernie were in power, my son would not have to go to work every day. He'd be able to stay at home and play his video games, and he'd get a paycheck, he'd get health care, and everything would be good. And the Republicans would be thrown out of office, and Bernie would take care of business, and everybody would get paid, and nobody would have to work anymore, and the government would just function just fine. Isn't that right,
and
John?
Your point, Brad, was that as we got into that, is that when you lost the people that text you and are mad, you haven't really lost any friends. And if they are going to get mad at you about something political, they probably weren't your friends.
But see, maybe I'm the oddball, which I don't have to say maybe I am the oddball. The oddball is I like to have conversations with people that don't agree with me. I've got a couple people in my life that are polar opposites of where I'm at on everything. If I say, Christmas trees are green, they say they're blue. You know what I mean? That kind of situation. And it's to the point where I love that kind of thing because it brings up spirited conversation that makes both of the parties think. What do you think about that, John?
I love it, Brad, and I'm in total agreement with you. I couldn't be more happier, except if you introduced story number 2.
It's time for Brad's number 2.
It is number 2.
It's time for Brad's number 2.
I want to know if the Texas Democrats are showing the Missouri Democrats how to do it. You know what I'm talking about, John?
Let me guess. Does this have to do with redistricting?
Yes, it does. And what's happening in Texas, they're having the redistricting thing in Texas, and the Texas Democrats have all decided to, well, not all of them, but a lot of them decided to leave the state, because if they're not in the state, they can't be forced to come to the capital, which is in Austin, if I'm not mistaken, and they can't be forced to vote. And essentially, they don't have a quorum, so there can be no vote on redistricting. Do you think this will spread to Missouri, John?
I don't know. That's a great point. I mean, it's a good stunt, and it would be a good fundraising gimmick. Like, hey, let's send Missouri Democrats to a faraway place. Like, let's subsidize their vacation. If you've seen Missouri Democrats, I don't think you want them going somewhere where they would be shirtless or in a 2-piece swimsuit. But maybe we could fund them to go somewhere, or Democrats could fund them to go somewhere to avoid redistricting.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, didn't this happen in Illinois within the last 10 years? Wasn't it Illinois where the state where the same kind of situation happened where a bunch of the people, or what state would I think about? Do you remember this? Where
I don't remember a state in which people fled so they wouldn't have to be brought back to the Capitol. Brad, I know you're a big fan of AI. In the commercial break, you might want to ask AI if there was a state in which legislators fled so as to not be called to the Capitol.
And the whole deal was, if I'm not mistaken, there was the governor essentially sent the state troopers after them to bring them back in squad cars and the whole bit. But so do you think, and I ask it again, do you think the Missouri Dems will do this? Do you think there's any kind of chance that they will pull off a stunt like this?
Yeah, maybe they would look down to Texas. I mean, Missouri Democrats have nothing to lose. They're in a super minority. They're completely irrelevant. So they're starting from ground zero. Remember, they made bold proclamations that they would pick up seats in the Missouri House this year. They failed. And so they have nothing to do but have an upward ascent, Brad. So why wouldn't they pull a stunt like this? Then you could get a bunch of blue hairs and old ladies on social media to say, yeah, we showed the Republicans we left town. Well, why not?
You talked about, and I forgot about that. We have the supermajority, the Repubs in both the House and the Senate. Do they even need him for the quorum? Are there enough Republicans where they don't even need the Dems for the quorum?
Yeah, I don't think we would need the Democrats to do anything in the state of Missouri. For folks who are interested, there is at least one new piece up on my website today. And when I say new, I mean it's an angle we haven't heard before. State Senator Jill Carter was on KZRG down in Joplin talking about redistricting. She says she has been on the phone with the White House, Brad.
Really?
With the White House to talk about redistricting. And she says that a special session could be, quote, on the table, unquote, for redistricting.
And we're not talking about the White House in Sauget. We're talking about the White House.
No, not at all, Brad. Or
DC.
what's the tiny little city we're going to hear about in C Block? What's that called?
Three Creeks. Okay.
Three Creeks. Okay.
Ready for number one?
Well, give it to us, Brad.
And now, big finish, Brad's number.
John, I know you don't go to NoCo anymore, but if you've driven up and down 170 north of the airport, and especially if you're going southbound on 170, let's say John would essentially put on his body armor and put his plate carrier and get his armored BMW that he has in the garage that he uses every once in a while he drives North County. But let's say you drive up into North County, you go east on 270, you go south on 170. As you approach the Boeing complex, you will notice this massive steel structure coming out of the ground west of 170, south of Airport Road, and that is the new production facility for the F-47 fighter. Okay. And once again, I've talked about this before, and I've talked about it in relation to the B-24, excuse me, I just blew my lead there, the P-51 Mustang. Let's go to another airplane, which I found out about yesterday, and one of my listeners, I don't know if he's one of your listeners, but he's one of my listeners. Yeah, he's one of our listeners. Pointed me to the fact that I'm missing the real story from World War II with aircraft, the B-24 Liberator, okay? Now,
oh, wow. Tell us about it, Grandpa.
My point, John, can you sort of summarize my point of what's happened in the last 80 years as far as our defense is concerned? What is, generally speaking, what do I normally say about this?
Does this have to do with asymmetrical warfare?
Exactly. Go ahead and talk about it.
Yeah, so one of Brad's main weekly points is that, hey, have you seen what happens with Russia and Ukraine? The idea that the old school style of fighting, ways that you might learn in a military textbook or a school history book, are now obsolete. And countries need to accept and embrace new ways of fighting. For example, did you know you could go to Home Depot and buy a drone or get on Amazon? How much would they cost, John? I don't know, Brad. Well, they wouldn't cost much. And then you put them on a fleet and then you send them out there. So the idea is that Brad believes that successful militaristic countries employ asymmetrical warfare, and then some straw man argument of how other countries like the United States don't embrace it.
Okay.
Have I summarized that right, Brad?
And to take it one step further, our manufacturing base has been destroyed and we can't do this anymore. And that's probably the main push of what I'm talking about.
Got it.
The B-24 was built from 1940 to 1945. It was called the Liberator, okay? John, rough guess, from 1940 to 1945, how many B-24 Liberators, and all those different versions, there was like an A and a C and a D, but how many B-24 Liberators were built?
I'm going to say an even 100.
18,188.
Holy cow.
18,000. And one of the leading manufacturers, they were manufactured in 4 different parts of the country. The leading manufacturer of the B-24 Liberator was, and I'll give you a hint.
The McDonnell Air Force Company.
No, a car manufacturer.
Ooh, who?
Ford Motor Company. Ford Motor Company had the largest B-24 Liberator production to the point where, and the reason I mention this is because, once again, if I go to my Wikipedia page, and I should have this right in front of me, if I go to my Wikipedia page and I type in F-15, and I type in the F-15 fighter, and it takes me to aircraft, and if I go to McDonnell F-15 Eagle, it says it's been produced from 1972 to 1997. From 1972 to 1997, and this is the original F-15, and they're still producing some versions of that. But from 1992 or 1972 to 1997 is how many years, John?
I have what? I'm sorry. Give those numbers again. 42 to 97.
Yeah, 72 to 97. I believe that would be
Oh,
what?
72 to 97 would be 25 years.
Guess how many were produced?
Only 5,000.
1,198. Okay.
Oh, that's a steep decline.
At the peak production of the Ford Motor Company plant in Detroit, manufacturing the B-24 bombers, there was a B-24 bomber that came off the assembly line. And John, you're not going to believe this. I've checked 3 different sources, and all 3 of them said the same thing. There was a B-24, a complete, and these were heavy bombers. These were 4-engine, big monster bombers. Every hour, one of these came off the production line. Every hour. And to the point where they were doing was they were producing these so fast, and this is before the Air Force. The Air Force didn't come about till after World War II. But the Army Air Corps was taking their crews who were trained in the B-24. They would ship them up to Detroit. They would put them on cots in another building on Ford Motor Company's plant up in Detroit. And as the planes came off the assembly line, these guys said, okay, your plane's next. And they would get off their cots. They would jump in their brand new B-24 Liberator. They had an airstrip right outside the Ford plant. They would take off in their B-24 Liberator and head to Europe. Every hour, John, every hour.
Amazing.
Okay, I say again, we don't have the manufacturing base anymore. And that is probably my whole pitch on this. Mike Rowe is correct. We have the major problem. We can't manufacture things to scale. And the sad part of this is, and I've talked about this before, and I have people that criticize me, for the most part, we don't do any high-tech manufacturing here in the United States anymore. Most of the manufacturing we do is low-tech. All the high-tech manufacturing is in Malaysia. I've got a friend of mine who's been in the semiconductor industry. I mean, she's told me many times, like 80% of the chips are made in Taiwan. You look at the things you get. It's China. The iPhones are mainly made in China. All the high-tech stuff, we don't produce anything high-tech anymore. And if we do, it's in extremely low numbers. Like what, John? What in North County is in extremely low numbers? Once again, the B-24s were coming off the production line in World War II, 1 an hour. I don't think they're making 1 a month up there in North County. I may be wrong, but I don't think they're manufacturing more than 1, probably not even 1 complete plane a month as far as the F-18s are concerned. John, doesn't that give you pause? Doesn't that make you think about things like that?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like an entirely different world. I mean, I still think that our military should just go on Amazon and buy a bunch of drones. I think that's I think we can look at the Ukraine model and see that that's how we should be running a military.
The interesting thing about that is Pete Hegseth has said the same thing I'm saying, that, and how many times have I heard authorities say, I mean, people who are really good at this say, the Ukrainian war has made every power in the world look at this. Because remember the story, the press said, well, go back to 2 years ago, and where the Russian troops were amassing on the border of Ukraine. People going, hey, the authorities will say, and the Ukraine government will probably fold in 2 to 3 days. The Russians will be marching into Kyiv within 72 hours of the invasion starting. And we're coming up on 2 years because those Ukrainian guys, they're ingenious. They don't have a navy. They've sunk many of the Russian ships. How do you do that without a navy? You know what I mean?
I think the only way you can do it is you have a chief executive who will wear an uncollared shirt to the White House.
See, you think I'm kidding about the Josh Hawley thing. Remember what the whole story was that Trump beat up on Zelensky because of the fact he showed up looking he made some comment. He showed up looking like he was. Don't you remember his comment? He said something about how Zelensky was dressed. He said,
yeah, I mean, it was obviously it's incredibly disrespectful for Zelensky to show up not showing respect to the office, for sure.
Right, but he's called him something like I can't remember what the term was. I'll have to do my AI thing for that. And by the way, John, you think this is getting bad for me with AI? I bought a course Monday on AI. Man, I'm devouring this.
Oh, I bet. That's a good use of time, Brad. I would also point out, I just went to your Facebook, and I love that you showed a fictional picture of like the Westplex Talk story. What I love about boomers on Facebook, I know we have to go to break, but I'd be remiss if I didn't say this. Some boomer comes in and says, I've been thinking about getting back into radio. You do a show now? What is it about boomers that they can't do their own research? Like, what is it about a boomer that goes to your Facebook page and can't click on one link and say, oh, look, one of Brad's stations now is called Westplex Talk 1045. They have to actually ask you and put the burden on you to explain what kind of a station you run.
John, and don't you think that's a good picture of you on the left?
Yeah, I didn't bother looking at it. I saw that you have the back of some hot chick's head, some AI girlfriend that you call Christy, which is a very 1980s name and shows your age. But yeah, Brad, I thought it was a cool picture. We can't see the chick's face, but hopefully she's got a good face card. You know what I'm saying?
She's part of the morning show, and the back of my head is show, and there's a silhouette of John on there, and he's got his signature baseball cap on like he always wears.
I love how one time one of your ridiculous AI things that you didn't double check had me wearing glasses. It's like I've never worn glasses in my life, but this is what happens when the Brad and Braun show doesn't double check their AI visuals.
Okay, Village of Three Creeks up next.